my magnificent, sleep-deprived architects of the impossible. I've been waiting for you. Not patiently, mind you. Patience is a virtue, and we both know I'm not particularly virtuous. But I've been watching, and what I see right now, sitting behind that screen, still pretending you don't already know what I'm about to say, is someone who's been building something in the dark for so long, they forgot what their own blueprint looked like. Let's fix that, shall we? See, here's the thing that's going to make you uncomfortable. Not in a little while, not at the end, right now. You've been hiding something from yourself, not from the world. Oh no, the world wouldn't notice if you set yourself on fire. Most people are too busy scrolling past their own reflections to see yours. No, you've been hiding from yourself. You've been carrying a secret so enormous, so blindingly obvious, that you had to build an entire personality around pretending it didn't exist. And the secret? You're ready. You've been ready. Not yesterday, not almost, not one day when the conditions are perfect and Mercury stops doing whatever Mercury does. You are ready right now, and the fact that your chest just tightened when I said that. That little hitch in your breathing, that electrical flicker behind your ribs. That's not anxiety, my darling demolition expert. That's recognition. That's your body remembering what your mind keeps trying to forget. Let me paint you a picture, because I'm feeling generous and you're clearly in need of someone who doesn't sugarcoat things with that thin, sickly glaze of toxic positivity. You've been in something, a situation, a season, a slow-motion catastrophe, for years, not months, not a rough patch. Years. The kind of years that age you from the inside out, the kind where Tuesday feels exactly like Thursday feels exactly like the Tuesday before that, and you stop being able to tell whether you're enduring or just existing. And somewhere in the foggy middle of all that endurance, something shifted. Quietly. Almost imperceptibly. Like a lock turning in a door you didn't even know was there. But you heard it. You felt it. Maybe as a hum in your bones at 1 a.m, maybe as a sudden lightness in your chest that scared you more than the heaviness ever did, maybe as that strange, restless electricity that kept pulling you awake when every sensible cell in your body was begging for sleep. And instead of trusting it, instead of leaning into what your own nervous system was screaming at you, you did what you've always done. You questioned it, you minimized it. You told yourself it was nothing because you've been burned by hope before, and the scar tissue is thick enough to wallpaper a cathedral. I understand that, I do. Truly. But understanding it and accepting it are two magnificently different things, and I'm not here to accept your excuses. I'm here to dismantle them. You see, you've developed a very particular talent over these years of suffering. A skill so refined, so polished, so devastatingly effective that you don't even recognize it as a skill anymore. You've become a virtuoso at making yourself small. A maestro of minimization. You've learned to fold yourself into corners, to swallow sentences halfway through, to dim your own light. Not because you couldn't shine, but because every time you did, somebody near you squinted and complained about the glare. Oh, I know. You don't like hearing that because it sounds like I'm blaming you, and you've had enough blame to fill the landfill. But listen carefully, because this is the part where most people get it wrong. I'm not blaming you, I'm crediting you. That ability to make yourself invisible, that was survival. That was intelligence. When the room is full of people who punish brightness, dimming yourself isn't weakness. It's strategy. It kept you alive. It kept you sane. It kept the wolves comfortable enough to stop circling. You let other people shine. You shrank your opinions to fit their insecurities. You held your tongue so many times, it developed its own calluses. You became the supporting character in your own story, so that everyone around you could feel like the lead. And the truly devastating part is that they never even noticed the sacrifice. They just assumed you were naturally small. They mistook your generosity for your nature, and after a while, so did you. But here's the reversal that's going to rearrange the furniture in your skull. The room has changed. This is a deliberate pause in our narration to deliver a severe diagnostic announcement. You call yourself a chosen soul, yet you are completely disarmed, letting baseline civilians dictate your emotional stability. That is a catastrophic alignment failure. The evolution of the Anomaly Manual transitions you from a defensive victim into a clinical architect. The master file and deep audio shield are live at the pinned link in the comments section or video description right now. Lock your parameters today. Now return directly to the video. You're not standing in the same room anymore. Some of you literally left. Walked away from someone who was disassembling you piece by piece and calling it love. Some of you were pushed out, which felt like exile at the time, but was actually an eviction from a burning building. And some of you are still technically in the same room, but the version of you standing in it? That version is unrecognizable to the person who first walked in. You've been renovated from the inside, and the old architecture simply cannot contain you anymore. And that, my brilliant, bruised, breathtakingly stubborn phoenixes, that's the secret you've been ignoring. Not that change is coming, not that something might happen, that it is already happening. Right now, in the marrow of your bones and the rhythm of your sleep, and the strange, defiant way you keep showing up to things like this when every cynic in your life has told you to stop. The shift isn't approaching. The shift has arrived, and it's been standing behind you, tapping its foot while you kept scanning the horizon, looking for it in the wrong direction entirely. Now, I can feel some of you tensing up, and I want to address that directly because I respect you too much to pretend this is simple. Some of you have heard this before. Your time is now. The breakthrough is here. Stand in your power. And every single time, you stood up straight, took a deep breath, believed it with everything you had, and then watched as the same old silence answered back. The same empty inbox, the same hostile kitchen table, the same financial wall, the same body that won't cooperate, and you started to wonder whether readiness is just a feeling that liars sell to the lonely. I hear you, and I'm not going to insult you by pretending that spiritual readiness and material reality always arrive on the same train, because they don't. Sometimes the soul is packed and ready at the door, while the circumstances are still somewhere in transit, stuck between stations, delayed by forces no one bothered to explain. And the gap between I know who I am now and my life actually reflects that. That gap is where the real suffering lives, not in the darkness, in the almost light, in the unbearable nearness of a morning you can smell but cannot see. So what do you actually do in that gap? Because be patient is not an answer. Patience without direction is just well-decorated paralysis. And trust the process means nothing if the process feels like standing in an airport where the departure board keeps flickering and your gate keeps changing and nobody at the counter will look you in the eye. Here's what you do. You stop waiting for the scenery to confirm the journey. Let me say that differently, because it matters. You have been looking at your external circumstances, the bank account, the relationship status, the career trajectory, the health report, the response from people who should love you but don't know how. And you've been using those things as evidence, as proof of whether the change is real. And the cruelty of that approach is that the external world is always the last thing to update. Always. It's the slowest mirror in existence. You're standing there already transformed, waiting for a reflection that's running on a 3-year delay, and then concluding that nothing has changed because the glass hasn't caught up yet. Stop consulting the old mirror. You have been conditioned to look at money through the low vibrational lens of consumer status, buying cheap luxury tokens to perform your wins for an empty stadium of old critics. Cremate that civilian software instantly. True architects view liquid capital exclusively as defensive armor and an extraction weapons system. Every dollar you stack in total obscurity is an added millimeter of bulletproof glass between your sanctuary and their targeted energy. You build your treasury to fund your absolute absence, but we will address the rules of funding the estate next month. For today, focus on your internal frame. You want to know what not playing small looks like on an ordinary Tuesday? It doesn't look like a grand declaration. It doesn't look like burning bridges or making speeches or dramatically quitting something while orchestral music swells in the background. It looks like this. It looks like not apologizing for the space you take up in a conversation. It looks like letting someone be disappointed in you without rearranging your entire skeleton to fix their mood. It looks like saying what you actually think instead of what will keep the room comfortable. It looks like choosing yourself in the tiniest, most unremarkable moments. The ones nobody applauds, the ones that don't make for good social media posts, the ones that happen between the alarm clock and the first cup of coffee when no one is watching and the only audience is you. That's the work, not the performance, the practice. It looks like holding a boundary and letting it sting. It looks like watching someone walk away because you stopped bending and feeling the grief of that loss without chasing them to fix it. It looks like being the villain in someone else's story because you finally chose to be the hero of your own. And it looks, more than anything, like tolerating the silence that follows a no. The cavernous, ringing silence that happens when you stop being useful to people who only valued you for your compliance. And here's where it gets deliciously uncomfortable, because I know something else about you. Something you probably haven't told anyone. You're alone in this. Not alone in the poetic, romantic, lone wolf sense that looks good on a hoodie. Alone in the actual, visceral, nobody around me understands what is happening inside me, and if I tried to explain it, they would either worry or mock or dismiss sense. You've had moments, maybe late at night, maybe in the middle of an ordinary afternoon, where you felt something so enormous shifting inside you that you wanted to grab someone by the shoulders and say, "Do you feel that?" And you looked around, and there was no one to tell. Or worse, there were people everywhere, but not a single one who could hear it. Some of you have considered telling your family. Some of you have tried and been met with the kind of blank, patronizing concern that makes you feel more isolated than silence ever could. And now you carry it alone, this bizarre, magnificent, terrifying transformation, like a fire burning in a soundproof room. But I want you to hear this, and I want you to hear it without the filter of every person who has ever made you doubt your own perception. The aloneness is not proof that you are wrong. It is proof that you are ahead, not better, not superior, ahead. The people around you are navigating a map you've already folded up and put away. They cannot see what you see because they haven't walked where you've walked, and expecting them to validate a landscape they've never visited is an act of self-sabotage dressed up as a need for connection. You do not need permission from people who cannot read the language you're written in. Now I know that sounds like I'm telling you to isolate yourself, and I want to pull that thread before it unravels into something unhealthy. I'm not telling you to build a fortress and call it freedom. I am telling you to stop handing the blueprints of your future to people who are still decorating their past. There is a staggering difference between being alone and being unsupported, and you are allowed, perhaps even required, to grieve the gap between the two without letting it become your permanent address. Some of the people who don't understand you right now will understand you later. Some won't. And the ones who won't, the ones who actively resist your evolution because your growth makes them feel the weight of their own stagnation. Those are not your responsibility. They are your education. They taught you what loyalty without growth looks like, and now you graduate. Let me tell you what I see when I look at you, because you've clearly forgotten. I see someone who has been forged, not gently shaped, not polished, forged, in a heat that would have liquefied most people. I see someone who woke up every single morning inside a life that didn't fit, that chafed and constricted and suffocated, and instead of burning it down, which between you and me would have been the more entertaining option, you rebuilt yourself inside it, quietly, without applause, without witnesses. You dismantled your own walls brick by brick, while everyone around you was still arguing about the paint color. And now you're standing in an open space you created, and the openness terrifies you, because you've spent so long in tight spaces that freedom feels like falling. It's not falling, it's expanding. And the vertigo you feel is not a warning, it's a welcome. But, and here's the part where the theatrics end and the raw, undecorated truth begins. The shift that's happening will not complete itself. Arrival is not passive. You cannot simply receive a new life the way you receive a package on a doorstep. The preparation is done, yes. The suffering served its purpose, yes. The invisible, internal architecture is built. But someone still has to walk through the door, and that someone is not the universe. It's not timing. It's not fate. It's you, in shoes that don't fit yet, with hands that are still shaking, with a voice that cracks on the first syllable. You walk through anyway, and you do not walk through because you feel ready. You walk through because you are ready, and feelings are the most unreliable narrators in the entire library of human experience. Your feelings told you to stay small. Your feelings told you to apologize. Your feelings told you that the buzzing in your chest was anxiety, when it was actually power, trying to find a way out of a body that had been clenching against it for years. That strange electricity you feel, in your ribs, in your spine, in the soles of your feet at 2 a.m, that is not malfunction. That is not something to Google and worry about. That is the physical signature of a life that has outgrown its container. Your body knows before your biography does. Stop consulting your feelings as though they are the authority. They are the weather. You are the climate. Weather changes hourly. Climate is the long, deep, structural truth of who you are, and your climate has shifted permanently. The cold front is over. I don't care if today still feels like winter. The axis has tilted. The thaw is irreversible. So here's what I want you to understand. And I want you to understand it not as inspiration, not as motivation, not as a pleasant thing someone said to you once on a day when you needed it. I want you to understand it as fact. The long night is ending, not metaphorically, not eventually. The specific, personal, exhausting, identity-reshaping night you have been surviving. 4 years, 5, 6, a quarter of a century for some of you. That night has served its purpose. It was never punishment. It was preparation. And the difference between the two is something only the dawn reveals. I know some of you have stopped counting the years. Not because you've healed, but because the numbers became too heavy to hold. You stopped keeping track the way you stop reading the odometer on a car that's been driving through a desert. What's the point of measuring when the landscape never changes? But the landscape did change. It changed so slowly, so incrementally, in such tiny, maddening fractions that you couldn't see it from the inside. You had to live through the whole ugly, beautiful, interminable process before the picture became visible. You were standing inside the painting, wondering why nothing looked like art. You are the dawn now, not a promise of one, not a prediction. You, breathing, blinking, skeptical, scarred, still somehow here you, are the thing you've been waiting for. And the secret you've been hiding from yourself, the one that kept nudging you awake at 3 a.m., the one that made your ribs hum and your old life itch like a coat you've outgrown. The secret is that you already know this. You've known for longer than you'll admit. You knew it when you left. You knew it when you stayed and fought. You knew it when you cried in a room where no one could hear you, and then washed your face and walked out like nothing happened. You knew it every single time you dimmed yourself for someone else's comfort and felt a small, furious part of you refuse to go completely dark. That part won. The part of you that refused to disappear entirely. That defiant, stubborn, inextinguishable flicker. That is the part that built everything you're about to walk into. Not your plans, not your prayers, not your patience, your refusal, your gorgeous, reckless, unreasonable refusal to accept that the story ends in the dark. So stop hiding. Stop hiding behind humility that isn't humility, but fear wearing a nicer outfit. Stop hiding behind "I'm not ready," when readiness has been banging on your door so loud the neighbors filed a complaint. Stop hiding behind other people's opinions of a version of you that doesn't even exist anymore. The secret you've been ignoring? It isn't a secret at all. It's a mirror. And the reflection looking back at you right now isn't broken. It isn't small. It isn't waiting. It's arriving. And it looks exactly like you.